My family excluded me from every family vacation for over a decade. They utterly lost it when I took a completely paid trip without them. Have you ever been systematically excluded by your own family for over a decade? I had, but they never expected me to turn the tables, expose their hypocrisy, and finally find a real family who truly loved me. And trust me, it wasn't pretty. So, I'm 28, and my biological family has this thing. Every single year, they plan these extravagant family trips. Last year, it was 2 weeks in Hawaii. The year before that? 3 weeks exploring Europe. They have a group chat, of course, a little exclusive club they call Family Adventures. My mom, my dad, my sister Katie, my brother Josh, and his wife Mariana, they're all in it. Me? Nope. Never been added. The first I ever heard about the Hawaii trip was when my mom posted a picture on Facebook. The caption read, "Perfect family vacation." My stomach dropped. Someone in the comments actually asked where I was, and my mom's reply? Oh, she had to work. Except I didn't have to work. Nobody even told me they were going. This wasn't a one-off. This had been my life since I was 16. Disney World at 17? They told me the day before there wasn't room in the hotel. A cruise at 21? Oops, we forgot to book your ticket. Every single time. There was always some excuse. We thought you were busy with school. You don't like boats anyway. Or my personal favorite, Katie really needed sister time with mom. It was a consistent, painful pattern, and it left me feeling like an afterthought, if I was even thought of at all. But here's where things start to change. My dad's sister, Aunt Rita, she noticed. She didn't say anything to my parents, but she quietly started inviting me to everything her family did. Sunday dinners, movie nights, even their small weekend getaways. Her husband, Tom, treats me like I'm his second daughter, always asking about my day, offering advice. And their kid, Bella? She calls me her big sister. They were slowly, gently, building a bridge to a place where I felt wanted. Then came my college graduation. A huge milestone. My parents? They didn't show up. Their excuse? They had to attend Josh's girlfriend's birthday party. Josh's girlfriend, someone they barely knew. But Rita, Tom, and Bella? They drove 4 hours to watch me walk across that stage for a mere 30 seconds. That day, something shifted inside me. I looked out at the sea of proud families, and while mine was absent, I saw 3 beaming faces cheering just for me. They were my anchors. Fast forward to last month. I got my bonus at work. And it wasn't just a nice bonus, it was huge. Like, $20,000 huge. A light bulb went off. I booked the most insane vacation package I could find to Turks and Caicos. We're talking a private villa, butler service, a yacht rental, the whole shebang. 7 nights at a resort where 1 night costs more than most people make in a week. I called Rita and told her to request time off for herself, Tom, and Bella for the following month. Don't tell them why, I said, my voice barely containing the excitement, just that it's important. She trusted me, no questions asked. She just did it. The day before we were set to leave, I drove to their house with all the documents. Bella started screaming, literally, when she saw the tickets. Tom teared up, his eyes shining. Rita kept saying, I can't accept this, it's too much. But I looked her straight in the eye and said, you guys are my real family. And this is happening. We flew out the next morning, first class. None of them had ever flown first class before. Bella, wide-eyed, took pictures of everything. Tom, a man of simple pleasures, ordered champagne just because he could. And Rita? She held my hand during takeoff, her grip tight, and whispered, you're the daughter I always wanted you to be. My heart swelled. This was what family was supposed to feel like. We were at the resort for 3 glorious days, completely unplugged, when my phone started exploding. Katie had posted on Instagram about their annual family trip planning meeting. Someone commented, is your sister going this year? Katie, predictably, replied, she never wants to come to these things. The problem? Rita's sister, who knew everything, followed Katie. She saw the post. And she commented, that's funny because she's in Turks and Caicos right now with Rita's family. All hell broke loose. My mom called me 15 times in an hour. My dad texted me paragraphs, rambling about how I was betraying the family by taking outsiders on expensive trips. Josh left me a voicemail, accusing me of being pathetic for trying to buy Rita's love. Mariana, ever the pragmatist, just texted, asking how much the trip cost, clearly wanting ammunition for Josh. I ignored every single one of them. I was on vacation. But then Katie did something truly stupid. She messaged Rita directly. Her words? "You should be ashamed of yourself taking advantage of my sister like this, making her pay for your vacation because you can't afford it yourselves." Rita, bless her heart, immediately screenshotted it and sent it to me. Now I was pissed. Properly boiling mad pissed. I called Katie, put her on speakerphone so the whole villa could hear. "What's your problem?" I demanded. She immediately launched into a rant about how I was wasting money on random relatives when my real family struggles to pay for their trips. My voice was shaking, but I stayed calm. "You guys went to Hawaii without me. You went to Europe without me. You've excluded me from every family vacation for 12 years. And she actually said it. You wouldn't have enjoyed those trips anyway. You're too uptight." I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "Really? Because Rita came to my college graduation." "Where were you, Katie?" Silence. Then a mumbled excuse. "Josh needed help moving that weekend." "Oh, really?" I shot back. "Because Josh moved 3 months after graduation." She tried another angle. "This is different. You're rubbing our faces in how much money you have now." I laughed again, this time with genuine, weary amusement. "No, Katie. I'm spending my money on people who actually want me around. Enjoy planning your next family trip. I'm sure you'll have a great time without me, just like always." She started to say something else, but I didn't wait. I hung up. Immediately after, my mom texted me I was no longer welcome at Christmas unless I apologized to everyone for being deliberately hurtful. My response was short and sweet. "That's fine. Rita already invited me to theirs. The rest of the trip was perfect." Bella learned to snorkel, her little face pressed to the mask, marveling at the fish. Tom caught a huge, ridiculous fish, beaming with pride. Rita and I stayed up late every night, talking on the beach, the waves a soothing backdrop to our whispered conversations. It was pure bliss. When we got home, there he was. My dad, waiting at my apartment, arms crossed, standing in the hallway outside my door. That familiar, disappointed dad expression, one I'd seen 1,000 times, etched onto his face. He didn't ask to come in, didn't even say hello. He just launched straight into it, a monologue about how I'd embarrassed the family and hurt my mother's feelings with my little stunt. I quietly dug my keys out of my purse and unlocked the door, ignoring him. I walked inside, and he followed, as if invited, which he absolutely was not. He closed the door behind him and started a whole speech about family loyalty. He rambled about how Rita had always been jealous of my mom and how she'd been trying to manipulate me for years. He actually said, "Rita saw an opportunity to turn you against your real family, and she took it." I dropped my suitcase by the door and just stood there, listening, watching him rewrite history before my eyes. He went on for 5 minutes, maybe more, spinning this tale about Rita always wanting what my mom had, being bitter about something from years ago, how this whole vacation was probably her idea to make my parents look bad. Part of me, a morbid, curious part, wanted to hear how far he'd take it. Then I cut him off mid-sentence. My voice was calm, steady. "Why wasn't I invited to Hawaii, Dad?" I asked. "I didn't stop there. What about Europe? The cruise? Disney World? Every other trip you took without me." His face did this weird thing. He actually looked confused, genuinely, as if he couldn't remember a single instance of excluding me. It was almost worse than if he'd been smug about it. He stood there, blinking, like I'd asked him to solve a complex math problem. But he recovered fast, switching gears. Those trips, he claimed, were planned around other people's schedules, and I was always busy with work or school anyway. They didn't want to bother me when I had so much going on. I pulled out my phone. Slowly, deliberately, I scrolled through screenshots. Rita had sent me pictures of that family adventures group chat I was never added to. I showed him my mom's Facebook posts, where she'd lied about me working. I laid it all out, a clear, irrefutable pattern of lies, going back 12 years, all lined up on my phone screen. His face hardened as he looked at the screen. He handed it back to me, his tactic changing yet again. I was being dramatic, he said. Holding grudges over nothing. He actually claimed they always assumed I didn't want to come because I never asked about the trips. I stared at him. How was I supposed to ask about trips I didn't even know existed? He ignored me, plowing ahead about how I was making a big deal out of normal family stuff. Leave, I said, my voice low, firm. I'm done having this conversation. You need to go. He didn't move. He stood there, rooted to my living room floor, insisting we needed to resolve this as a family, which, of course, meant me apologizing to everyone and pretending the last 12 years never happened. He said if I just apologized for the vacation and for being disrespectful, we could move past this. I pulled out my phone again. This time, I called Rita, putting her on speaker before it even started ringing. She picked up on the second ring. Dad's in my apartment, I said, my voice a little louder than necessary, and he's refusing to leave. Can Tom come over? I knew my dad wouldn't make a scene in front of his brother-in-law. Rita started to say Tom didn't need to bother, but I cut her off, my voice pleading, please. My dad's whole expression changed. The disappointed mask dropped, replaced by pure, unadulterated anger. His face went red. He pointed at my phone, his fingers shaking. You're choosing sides. You're destroying the family by calling Rita instead of working this out with me. You're proving everything I just said about her manipulating you. He finally headed for the door, but slammed it so hard behind him that the picture frames on my wall shook. My neighbor's door creaked open, and she peeked out. I waved, a forced smile on my face, everything's fine, then closed my door and locked it. Tom showed up 20 minutes later, even though Rita had told him not to bother. He knocked, identified himself, and when I opened the door, he came in and did a full walkthrough of my apartment, checking the locks on the windows, making sure the deadbolt worked. He asked if my dad had a key. No, I said, I never gave my parents one. He nodded. Good. Then he offered to stay on my couch that night, just in case. I told him no, but that I appreciated it more than words could say. He pulled me into a hug, a strong, comforting embrace. You're my daughter, too, he murmured. And I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself, even though it's hard and scary. I hugged him back, feeling the tears well up, but I held them in. He stayed for another hour, just sitting with me on the couch, not talking about anything important, just being there. When he finally left, he made me promise to call if anything else happened. I locked the door behind him. That night, I couldn't sleep. My dad's words echoed in my head. Was I being too hard on them? Was I the problem? I stared at my ceiling for hours, wrestling with self-doubt. Then, around 3 o'clock in the morning, a memory pierced through the haze, my college graduation. I saw myself, sitting in that audience, watching other families take pictures, celebrate, while my parents were at some birthday party for Josh's girlfriend, who they barely knew. Rita had driven 4 hours, each way, just to watch me walk across a stage for 30 seconds. My parents couldn't drive 20 minutes. The self-doubt vanished. I stopped wondering if I was being unreasonable and finally fell asleep around 4 a.m. My alarm blared at 7 o'clock for work, and I felt like garbage, but I dragged myself up. I was making coffee when my phone buzzed. A text from Katie. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity got the better of me. It was a massive wall of text, accusing me of always being difficult and causing problems in the family. She listed examples from when we were kids, the time I cried at her birthday party when I was 6 because no one would play with me, or when I didn't want to share my toys with Josh when I was 8. She rewrote every single memory, twisting normal kid behavior into evidence that I was some kind of problem child who deserved to be excluded. She claimed I was always jealous of her relationship with Mom, that I made family dinners awkward by being quiet and sullen. I read through the whole thing twice. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. She was making things up, gaslighting me, manipulating the narrative to suit her. I didn't respond to her, but I screenshotted every single message and sent them all to Rita. My phone rang about 30 seconds later. It was Rita, and she was already talking before I even said hello. "Are you seeing this?" she fumed. We spent the next hour going through Katie's messages line by line. Rita, sharp as ever, pointed out all the ways Katie was gaslighting me. She remembered most of these events differently, or knew the real context Katie conveniently left out. Like that birthday party where I cried? Rita was there. She remembered that Katie's friends had been actively mean to me, even made fun of my dress. The toy incident with Josh? That happened right after he deliberately broke my favorite doll, and my parents had made me apologize to him. Rita grew angrier and angrier as we dissected each claim. She kept saying she couldn't believe Katie would try such a manipulative tactic. She explained it was classic scapegoat behavior, where one family member gets blamed for everything so the others don't have to look at their own actions. She then mentioned that her sister had seen more comments on Katie's Instagram post about the family trip planning, and apparently, extended family members were weighing in now. Some were defending me, saying they'd always wondered why I was never at family events. One cousin had asked why I wasn't in the group chat. Another aunt thought it was weird I missed so many holidays. This, Rita explained, was making my parents really angry. Now, people were asking uncomfortable questions instead of just accepting whatever excuse my mom gave. Rita sounded almost happy about it, which, I admit, made me feel a lot less guilty for causing drama. We finally hung up, and I was running late for work, but I felt better. Rita saw it. She truly understood what Katie was trying to do. I was at my desk for maybe 2 hours when my phone rang. It was my dad's number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. It was my mom, crying. She was using my dad's phone because I'd been ignoring her calls from her own number. She was sobbing, claiming I'd turned the whole family against them, that relatives were asking why they excluded me, and she didn't know what to say. She kept repeating that I was making them look like bad parents, that I was being cruel by not defending them to extended family. I let her talk for a minute, then I cut her off. "I didn't turn anyone against you, Mom," I said, my voice steady. "You did that yourselves. By lying about me for 12 years. She started to argue, claiming they never lied, they just didn't want to burden me with trips I wouldn't enjoy. "That's a lie, too," I said, and I hung up before she could say anything else. For the first time since this whole thing started, I didn't feel crazy for being hurt by their behavior. I felt validated. That afternoon, Josh left me a voicemail. I could tell immediately that my parents had written a script for him. He sounded like he was reading from a teleprompter. He droned on about family forgiveness and moving forward together and healing old wounds. He never once said what they did wrong. Never acknowledged they excluded me. Never offered any kind of actual apology. It was all just generic, meaningless fluff about how family is important and we need to work through our differences. The whole message was like 5 minutes long, and he sounded uncomfortable the entire time, like he knew this was garbage, but he was doing it anyway. I texted him back with just one question. "Did you know I wasn't invited to Hawaii?" He didn't respond for 6 hours. I thought he was just going to ignore me, but finally my phone buzzed. His text simply said, "Mom said you had to work and nothing else." That told me everything I needed to know about whether he was willing to see the truth, or if he was just going to keep believing whatever made things easier for him. Sunday arrived, and Rita invited me to their regular dinner, just like always. I'd been going to these dinners for years, and it was the most normal, comforting part of my week. Bella was practically bouncing off the walls when I got there because she'd gotten all the photos from our Turks and Caicos vacation printed, and she wanted to show me every single one. We spread them out on the dining room table, reliving every moment while Rita made dinner. There were pictures of Bella snorkeling, Tom on the yacht, and all of us laughing on the beach. Tom's sunburn in the photos was hilarious. He'd gotten so red on the second day. He kept swearing he'd used sunscreen, but clearly not enough. Rita made her special lasagna, and we were halfway through dinner when the doorbell rang. Rita got up to answer it, and came back with her sister, Virginia, Virginia's husband, and their kids. Virginia walked straight over to where I was sitting and pulled me into this tight, fierce hug. I'm so glad you finally stood up to your parents, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. I've watched them treat you like an afterthought for years. Someone needed to call them out, and I'm so proud of you for doing it, even though it's hard. Virginia pulled back from the hug and sat down at the table with us, grabbing a piece of garlic bread. My mom called me 2 days ago, she said, looking at me, asking me to talk sense into you. I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth. I could already guess what that conversation was like. Virginia waved her hand dismissively. I set her straight. Told her the only sense to be talked was into parents who systematically excluded their daughter for 12 years and then got mad when she found a real family. Tom actually burst out laughing. Bella, ever curious, asked what systematically meant. Rita explained it meant doing something over and over on purpose. Bella nodded, as if that made perfect sense. Virginia's husband said he never understood why my parents treated me differently and was glad I finally did something about it. Even their kids, young as they were, nodded along. It hit me then. Even they had noticed something was wrong with how my family treated me. The whole table went quiet for a second, and I felt this weird pressure building in my chest. These people weren't related to me by blood, but they had been paying attention to my life for years. They noticed when I was excluded, and they cared about it more than my own parents did. Virginia reached over and squeezed my hand. I had to blink really fast because I was not going to cry at the dinner table. Rita saw my face and, ever graceful, changed the subject to dessert, asking who wanted ice cream with their pie. Everyone started talking about dessert preferences, and the moment passed, but the emotion lingered. After dinner, we were clearing plates when Bella came up to me. Are you coming to our house for Christmas this year? She asked. The question caught me off guard. I hadn't actually made it official yet. I looked over at Rita, who was scraping plates at the sink. I'd love to, I told Bella, if the invitation still stands. Rita dropped the plate she was holding back into the sink with a clatter and spun around. Of course, the invitation stands, she exclaimed, her eyes shining. I've been hoping you'd say yes. She immediately launched into talking about the Christmas menu, asking what my favorite holiday foods were. Tom joked that Rita had been planning this Christmas in her head since July. Bella started jumping up and down, talking about making cookies and watching Christmas movies. Virginia said she'd bring her famous sweet potato casserole, and suddenly, everyone was planning this huge Christmas celebration. I stood there, a stack of dirty plates in my hands, a profound sense of belonging washing over me. I finally found where I was supposed to be. The next few days went by pretty normally. I went to work, came home, and avoided my phone when I saw texts from my biological family. A week after that dinner at Rita's house, my phone buzzed during my lunch break. It was a text from my mom. I almost didn't read it, but curiosity got the better of me. The message was cold. They were moving forward with their Christmas plans without me since I've made my choice clear. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of anything they did wrong, just confirmation that I was still excluded, and somehow, it was my fault for not apologizing to them. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to type out a huge response, explaining everything, but I knew it wouldn't change anything. Instead, I just typed back, okay, have a good holiday, and hit send. I put my phone down and finished my sandwich. My phone buzzed again an hour later when I was back at my desk. It was Rita, asking if I was okay. I realized she must have talked to my mom, or somehow found out about the text. I told her I was fine, and she responded immediately, saying she was coming to pick me up after work. When I got outside at 5 p.m., Rita's car was already there. I climbed in, and she just reached over and squeezed my hand. She didn't ask me to talk about it or tell me how I should feel. She just quietly reminded me that I have a family who actually wants me around. We drove to her house. Tom was making dinner, and Bella ran up and hugged me like she always does. Everything felt normal and safe. This, I realized, is what family is supposed to feel like. Work became this welcome distraction over the next few days. I threw myself into projects and meetings, finding a surprising amount of focus. My boss stopped by my desk one afternoon and mentioned that I seemed lighter somehow. She said I'd been more focused and engaged in meetings. I told her I'd just been working through some family stuff, and she nodded, like she understood. Later that day, getting coffee in the break room, I realized my boss was right. Standing up for myself had been painful, yes, but it had also lifted this immense weight I didn't even know I was carrying. I wasn't constantly wondering why my biological family didn't want me around anymore. I knew why, and I knew it wasn't actually about me. The next morning, I was scrolling through social media during breakfast, and Katie's latest post popped up. It was a bunch of photos from what she was calling the family Christmas planning meeting. There was my mom and dad, Josh and his wife, all of them sitting around my parents' dining room table with notebooks and calendars. Katie had tagged everyone in the photos except me. She even tagged some cousins who weren't in the pictures. The exclusion was so deliberate, it was almost funny. It stung for just a second, that sharp, familiar feeling of being left out. But then I remembered that these were the same people who went to Hawaii without telling me. The same people who chose a girlfriend's birthday party over my college graduation. I was planning Christmas with people who drove 4 hours to watch me walk across the stage. I closed the app and finished my breakfast. The sting was gone. That weekend, I was back at Rita's house, helping Bella with a school project. We were building some kind of volcano for her science class, and there was papier-mâché everywhere. Bella got this serious look on her face and asked if she could call me her sister instead of her cousin. She said that's what I really am to her anyway. I told her I'd be honored, and she threw her arms around me, getting papier-mâché paste all over both of us. Rita walked in and saw us hugging, and her eyes got all watery. She didn't say anything, but I could see what it meant to her. Tom came in and asked what he missed, and Bella proudly announced that I was officially her sister now. Tom grinned and said he always knew I was part of the family. We finished the volcano, ordered pizza, and everything felt right. Monday morning, I was eating lunch at my desk when the receptionist called. "There's someone here to see you," she said, her voice uncertain. I asked who it was. "Your father," she replied. My stomach dropped, but I took a deep breath. "Is he causing problems?" I asked. "No," she said, "but he's insisting he needs to talk to you." I told her to let security know, and that I didn't want to see him. There was a pause. "Okay," she said, "I'll handle it." I could hear her talking to someone in the background. She came back on the line. "Security is with him now. Are you sure you don't want to see him?" "No," I said again, clearer this time. I realized I had the power to enforce my boundaries. I didn't have to see him just because he showed up. The receptionist said she'd take care of it and hung up. I sat at my desk, trying to focus on my computer screen, but my hands were shaking. About 10 minutes later, the receptionist called back. "Your father left," she said, "but he left a note for you with security." She asked if I wanted her to bring it up. I told her yes, and she arrived a few minutes later with a sealed envelope. I thanked her, and she gave me this sympathetic look before heading back downstairs. I opened the envelope and pulled out a piece of paper covered in my dad's familiar handwriting. The first line said, "I'm breaking my mother's heart and destroying the family." I didn't read the rest. I folded the paper back up, walked to the break room, and threw it in the trash. I was done accepting blame for their choices. That weekend, Tom called and asked if I wanted to go fishing with him on Saturday morning. He said he usually went alone but thought I might like to come along. I'd never been fishing in my life, but I told him yes right away. Something about the invitation felt important, like he was showing me I was part of his regular life now, not just the big vacation moments. Saturday morning, I met him at the lake at 6 a.m. It was cold and foggy, and I was wearing clothes Rita lent me because I didn't own anything appropriate for fishing. Tom handed me a thermos of coffee and didn't make fun of my borrowed gear. We got the boat loaded and headed out onto the water. The lake was quiet, except for the sound of the motor and a few birds calling to each other. Tom cut the engine, and we drifted for a while before he started setting up the fishing rods. He showed me how to cast, his hands guiding mine through the motion. He was patient when I messed up and tangled the line. He just untangled it and told me to try again. We sat in comfortable silence for a long time, just the sound of water lapping against the boat. Then Tom started telling me stories about when Rita and my dad were kids. He talked about how they used to build forts in the woods behind their house and how Rita always let my dad be the leader, even though she was older. He mentioned summer trips to their grandparents' farm and how my dad would get jealous when their parents praised Rita for being responsible. Tom said my dad was always competitive with Rita, always trying to prove he was just as good or better. He said their parents favored Rita because she was calmer and more helpful, and my dad never really got over that. Tom looked at me, a thoughtful expression on his face. Maybe, he suggested gently, your parents excluded you because you reminded them of Rita. Or maybe because they saw how much Rita loved you, and it triggered something in your dad. The observation hit me hard. It actually made perfect, chilling sense. Katie looked exactly like my mom, with the same blonde hair and sharp features. Josh acted like my dad, competitive and always needing to be the center of attention. But everyone had always told me I was just like Rita, calm, thoughtful, good at listening. Maybe that was exactly why they pushed me away. Maybe every time they looked at me, they saw my dad's sister instead of their daughter. I sat with that devastating realization while Tom reeled in a fish. He didn't push me to talk about it, just kept fishing and telling stories. We stayed out on the lake until noon. I caught 2 fish and Tom caught 5. On the drive back, he told me we should do this again next month. Thanksgiving came, and I spent it at Rita's house. Virginia and her husband and kids showed up around noon with 3 pies and a huge bowl of mashed potatoes. The house was full of noise and laughter and the warm, comforting smell of turkey. Rita started a new tradition where we went around the table and everyone said what they were grateful for. When it was my turn, I looked around at all their faces. I'm grateful for family who chooses to show up, I said, my voice thick with emotion. Bella immediately added that she was grateful I was her sister now. Rita started crying happy tears right into her mashed potatoes and had to excuse herself to get tissues. Tom squeezed my hand under the table. Virginia's kids talked about being grateful for video games and pie, and everyone laughed. The whole day felt easy and natural. No one walking on eggshells or worrying about being forgotten. I wasn't anxiously checking my phone, waiting for a text that never came. I was just here, fully present, with people who actually wanted me around. Later that evening, when I was home, Virginia texted me a screenshot. My mom had sent a group text to the extended family, talking about how hard the holiday was when family members abandon their roots and forget where they came from. The message was clearly about me without mentioning my name. Virginia said she wanted me to see it, but that I shouldn't let it ruin my day. The weird thing was, I wasn't even angry when I read it. I just felt sad for my mom, that she spent Thanksgiving crafting guilt trip messages instead of enjoying her family. Several relatives responded to my mom's text, and Virginia screenshotted those too. My dad's cousin said she'd seen how I was treated over the years and thought my mom needed to look in a mirror. Rita's brother mentioned that he noticed I was never invited to family trips and always wondered why. Another cousin pointed out that Rita's family seemed pretty happy to include me in everything. My mom didn't respond to any of them. Virginia texted me a few days later, saying, my mom has stopped posting on social media completely. She heard through another relative that my mom was upset no one was taking her side. Apparently, she expected everyone to agree that I was being ungrateful and difficult. Instead, people were asking her uncomfortable questions about why she excluded me for 12 years. The first week of December, my phone rang, and it was Josh. For just a second, I thought maybe he was calling to apologize, to finally acknowledge what had happened. Instead, he asked if I was really not coming to Christmas this year. He said, Mom is upset, and can't you just pretend everything is fine for her sake? Just come to Christmas and act normal, and everyone can move on. I told Josh I was done pretending. I'd spent 12 years pretending it didn't hurt to be excluded from every family vacation and every important event. I pretended it was okay that they went to Hawaii without telling me. I pretended it didn't matter that they chose a girlfriend's birthday over my college graduation. I wouldn't spend one more day pretending any of it was acceptable. Josh immediately called me selfish, said I was making everything about me. He insisted Mom was struggling, and I should be the bigger person. I hung up on him. In that moment, I finally understood that he would never see me as anything but the problem. He would never admit that they did anything wrong. To him, I was just difficult and ungrateful, and nothing I said would change that view. I texted Rita and told her about the call. She responded immediately, saying their loss was her gain, and that she was already planning Christmas dinner with me in mind. A few days later, Rita picked me up for Christmas shopping, and we headed to the big mall across town. Bella bounced in the back seat, chattering about what she wanted to get for her dad and showing us her list, written in purple marker. The mall was packed with holiday shoppers, and every store had decorations and music playing. We started in the toy section, looking for something for Bella's friend from school. Rita and I were laughing about a ridiculous stuffed animal that sang when Bella suddenly grabbed my hand and pointed across the aisle. My mom was standing near the checkout area, holding a shopping bag. She looked right at us, and I saw her face change, her eyes widening. For just a second, I thought maybe she'd come over, or at least wave. Instead, she turned completely around and walked fast toward the exit on the other side of the store. I watched her disappear into the crowd and felt this weird, empty feeling in my chest. Rita squeezed my shoulder but didn't say anything. Bella tugged on my sleeve. "Why did Grandma Bonnie walk away like that?" she asked, her voice small. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. How do you explain that to a child? Rita knelt down next to Bella. "Sometimes grown-ups have disagreements and need space, and that's okay," she said gently. Bella asked if Grandma was mad at me, and Rita explained that grown-up feelings are complicated, but it doesn't change how much we love Bella. Bella seemed to accept this and went back to looking at toys, but I could tell she was confused. We moved to another store, and Rita linked her arm through mine. "Her loss," she said softly. "I'm glad to have you." We tried on ridiculous hats in the accessory store. Bella put on a huge, floppy sun hat with fake flowers. Rita wore a fuzzy winter hat with ear flaps, and I picked up a sparkly beret. We took pictures in the mirror, making silly faces, and Bella laughed so hard she snorted. The sadness from seeing my mom faded as we moved through the stores. We stopped at the food court and got hot chocolate piled high with whipped cream. Bella got chocolate on her nose, and Rita used a napkin to wipe it off. This was what family was supposed to feel like. No one was checking their phone to see if someone else texted. No one was making plans without me. We were just here, together, having fun. Rita and I split a giant pretzel, and Bella told us about her school play. We spent 2 hours going from store to store, and my feet hurt, but I didn't care. I found a beautiful scarf for Rita in a deep blue that matched her eyes. For Tom, I got a fancy fishing lure set he'd mentioned wanting months ago. For Bella, I found this amazing art kit with every color marker imaginable and special paper for drawing. I also grabbed a nice candle set for Virginia and her husband because they'd been so supportive. Rita tried to peek in my shopping bags, but I hid them and told her no spoiling the surprise. We passed a jewelry store, and Bella pressed her face against the window, looking at sparkly necklaces. Rita and I exchanged a look, and we went inside. I let Bella pick out a simple silver bracelet with a heart charm. The clerk wrapped it up, and Bella carried the small bag like it was treasure. On the drive home, Bella fell asleep in the back seat, hugging her shopping bags. Rita reached over and held my hand. She told me she was proud of me for handling the situation with my mom with such grace. I didn't feel very graceful, but I appreciated her saying it. 3 days before Christmas, my phone buzzed with a text from Mariana. I stared at her name on my screen for a full minute before opening it. She said she was sorry for not speaking up over the years. She wrote that she always thought the exclusion was wrong, but didn't want to cause problems with Josh's family. She said she should have said something and that she regretted staying quiet. I read the message 3 times, trying to figure out how I felt about it. Part of me wanted to be angry, but mostly I just felt tired. I texted back that I appreciated her apology, but staying silent made her complicit. I told her that watching something wrong happen and doing nothing is still a choice. She responded right away, saying she accepted that and understood if I didn't want a relationship with her. She just wanted me to know she saw the truth now. I put my phone down and didn't respond again. It's something, I guess, but it doesn't change 12 years of silence. Christmas Eve at Rita's house smelled like sugar and cinnamon. Bella dragged me into the kitchen where cookie dough was already spread across the counter. We spent the afternoon cutting out shapes and decorating them with colored frosting. Tom built a fire in the living room, and the whole house felt warm, filled with soft light. Rita taught me her mom's recipe for cinnamon rolls that we'd bake in the morning. She showed me how to roll the dough just right and told me stories about making these with her mom when she was little. We watched old Christmas movies, and Bella insisted on making hot chocolate from scratch with real cocoa powder. She stirred the pot carefully while Rita supervised. Tom brought in more wood for the fire and settled into his chair with a book. I curled up on the couch with a blanket, and Bella snuggled next to me. The TV played some old movie about a kid wanting a BB gun, but I was barely paying attention. I was just soaking in this feeling of being exactly where I was supposed to be. Around 10 p.m., Bella started yawning, and Rita sent her up to brush her teeth. I helped clean up the kitchen, and Rita hugged me tight before I headed upstairs. I sleep in the guest room, which Rita now calls my room. She's hung photos on the walls, including several from our Turks and Caicos trip. There's one of all four of us on the beach at sunset, and another of Bella and me snorkeling. My favorite is a candid shot of Rita and me laughing at dinner. I changed into pajamas and climbed into bed. The sheets smelled like lavender, and the room was quiet except for the gentle sounds of the house settling. I fell asleep feeling completely at peace. Christmas morning, Bella burst into my room at 7 a.m., jumping on the bed. She was wearing reindeer pajamas, and her hair was sticking up everywhere. I followed her downstairs where Tom already had coffee brewing and Rita was pulling the cinnamon rolls from the oven. The smell was incredible. We ate breakfast first, even though Bella kept glancing at the presents under the tree. Rita made scrambled eggs, and Tom cut up fruit. Finally, we moved to the living room and started opening gifts. We went slowly, taking turns, actually watching each person open their present. Bella opened the art kit first and screamed with excitement. She immediately wanted to start drawing, and Rita had to remind her to finish opening everything else first. When Rita opened the photo album I made from our vacation, she started crying. She flipped through every page, looking at the pictures and reading the little notes I wrote. Tom got emotional, too, looking over her shoulder. Bella loved the bracelet and put it on right away, holding her wrist up to show everyone. I opened gifts from them, including a soft sweater from Rita and a new purse from Bella that she picked out herself. Then Tom handed me a long, thin package. I unwrapped it carefully and found a fishing rod with my name engraved on the handle. Tom said he expected me to use it regularly. The gesture hit me hard because it wasn't just a gift. It was a promise that I'd be around, that I was part of their regular life. I hugged him, feeling tears starting, but I didn't care. This was my family, and I was finally home. Around noon, Virginia showed up with Nathaniel and their kids, carrying dishes of food. She hugged me tight and whispered that she was glad I was here, where I belonged. The house filled up fast with people setting plates and silverware on the big dining table. Virginia brought a huge pan of green bean casserole, and Nathaniel carried in a turkey he'd smoked himself. Their kids ran around with Bella, showing them all her new presents. Rita assigned everyone jobs, and the kitchen became this organized chaos of people heating dishes and stirring pots. I helped Virginia set the table, and she told me she was proud of me for choosing myself. Nathaniel carved the turkey while Tom poured drinks for everyone. We all gathered around the table, and it was packed with people who actually wanted to be here together. No one was missing. No one got left behind or forgotten. Everyone brought something, and everyone mattered. Rita said a quick thank you for the food and the people around the table. And then we started passing dishes. The conversation flowed easily, with people laughing and telling stories. Bella sat next to me and kept putting food on my plate, saying I needed to try everything. I looked around at all these faces and realized this was what family dinners were supposed to feel like. My phone sat in my pocket, completely silent. I checked it once during dessert, and there was nothing. No texts from my mom or dad. No calls from Katie or Josh. Not even a generic Merry Christmas message. It hurt for a second, seeing that empty screen, but then I looked back at the table full of people who chose to be here with me. My biological family was somewhere having their own Christmas, and they were fine without me. They were probably not even thinking about me right now. That realization settled into my chest, heavy and painful, but also crystal clear. They were more interested in being right than having a relationship with me. They'd rather exclude me and defend their choice than admit they were wrong or try to fix things. The silence from my phone told me everything I needed to know about where I stood with them. After dinner, everyone helped clean up, and then we moved to the living room for coffee and more dessert. Rita pulled me aside into the hallway while everyone else was distracted. She handed me a small wrapped box and told me to open it now. Inside was a silver key on a simple keychain. There was a note tucked under it that said, "You always have a home here," in Rita's familiar handwriting. I looked up at her and my eyes filled with tears. She pulled me into a hug, and I finally let myself cry for real. Not sad crying, exactly, but this release of everything I'd been holding. All the years of being left out, of making excuses for them, of wondering what was wrong with me. All of it came out while Rita held me and rubbed my back. She told me I was her daughter in every way that mattered. And this house was my home whenever I needed it. I cried harder because I'd wanted to hear those words my whole life. When I finally stopped crying, my face was blotchy and my eyes were swollen. But I felt lighter somehow, like I'd been carrying this weight for 12 years, and I finally put it down. Rita wiped my face with her sleeve, and we went back to join everyone else. No one asked why my eyes were red. They just made room for me on the couch and handed me a cup of coffee. A week later, Rita threw a New Year's Eve party and invited all their friends. The house filled up with couples and families I'd never met before. A woman named Sarah introduced herself and said she'd heard so much about me. She mentioned that Rita talked about her second daughter all the time. Another couple came over, and the husband said Rita had shown them pictures from our vacation, and it looked amazing. I met person after person who knew stories about me. They knew about my college graduation and how Rita drove 4 hours to be there. They knew about Sunday dinners and movie nights. They'd heard about Turks and Caicos and the fishing rod Tom gave me for Christmas. These people had known about me for years while I had no idea I was part of their conversations. Rita had been claiming me as family to everyone in her life this whole time. The realization hit me. I'd belonged to this family way longer than I understood. I wasn't just adopted into it a few months ago when I took them on vacation. I'd been Rita's daughter in her heart for years, and she'd been telling everyone. Tom found me standing in the corner, getting emotional, and asked if I was okay. I told him I just realized I'd had a family this whole time and didn't fully know it. He smiled and said they'd been waiting for me to figure it out. As midnight got closer, everyone gathered in the living room with champagne glasses. Bella ran around, making sure everyone had a drink, even if it was just sparkling cider. Tom turned on the TV to watch the ball drop in Times Square. Everyone counted down together, and at midnight, we all cheered and toasted. Rita raised her glass and said, "To new beginnings and family." Everyone drank and hugged, and Bella jumped up and down, excited about staying up so late. She found me in the crowd and made me promise we'd go on another vacation together soon. Tom came over and joked that I was stuck with them now, whether I liked it or not. I told him I'd never been happier to be stuck with anyone. The party went until almost 2 a.m., with people slowly heading home. I helped Rita and Tom clean up while Bella fell asleep on the couch. When the house was finally quiet, Rita hugged me goodnight, and I drove home feeling full in a way I never have before. In January, a letter arrived from my parents' lawyer. My hands shook opening it because I expected something mean or hostile. Instead, it was just business paperwork about a family trust my grandmother set up years ago. The letter was professional and distant, explaining that they needed my signature on some documents to finalize the distribution. There was no personal message from my parents. No note saying they missed me or wanted to talk. Just legal paperwork, treating me like any other beneficiary they needed to deal with. The coldness of it somehow hurt more than if they'd sent something angry. This made it clear they were moving forward with their lives, and I was just a legal obligation to handle. I put the letter on my counter and stared at it for a while. Then I looked up lawyers in my area and made some calls. I found one who handles family trust issues and made an appointment for the following week. When I told Rita about the letter, She immediately offered to come to the lawyer meetings with me. She said I shouldn't have to deal with this alone. I appreciated the offer, but something in me wanted to handle this myself. I told her I could do it, and I was surprised by how strong my voice sounded. The lawyer meeting was straightforward and professional. I explained the situation, and he reviewed the paperwork. He said it was a simple distribution and shouldn't take long to resolve. I signed what I needed to sign and let him handle communicating with my parents' lawyer. Over the next few weeks, the legal stuff moved forward quickly. My parents didn't fight me on anything or try to reduce my share or make it difficult. Everything was fair and reasonable and completed without any drama. Their lawyer sent the final paperwork, and it was done. Somehow that felt worse than if they tried to fight me or cut me out. It would have shown they cared enough to be petty or mean. Instead, they just handled it like business and moved on. Like I was someone they used to know, and now we were settling old accounts before going our separate ways forever. I started seeing a therapist in late January. Not because I was falling apart or couldn't function, but because I wanted to understand what happened and why. I wanted to make sure I didn't carry this pain into other relationships or repeat these patterns somehow. My therapist is a woman in her 50s who listened carefully and asked good questions. I told her about the 12 years of exclusion and the vacation with Rita and everything that came after. She asked how I felt about my choice to invest in Rita's family instead of my biological one. I told her it felt like the only real choice I had. She nodded and said that choosing Rita's family was an act of self-love. She explained that I recognized who valued me and chose to invest my time, money, and heart with them instead of people who repeatedly showed they didn't want me around. We talked about patterns and family dynamics and why some parents struggle to love certain children. She helped me see that my parents' behavior says everything about them and nothing about my worth. And over the next few weeks, I started to feel like I was processing everything in a healthy way instead of just pushing it down. Valentine's Day came, and Bella showed up at my apartment with a huge card she made. It was covered in glitter and stickers and drawings of the two of us. In big letters across the front, it said, "Best big sister ever," with hearts all around it. Inside, she wrote about how much she loves me and how I'm the best sister anyone could have. I hugged her tight and told her I loved her, too. After she leaves, I put the card on my fridge right next to the photos from Turks and Caicos. There's one of all four of us on the beach and another of Bella and me snorkeling. Every time I walk past my fridge, I see that card and those photos, and I remember what real family looks like. A week after Valentine's Day, Rita called me and suggested we plan a trip together, just the two of us. She wants to take me to the small town where she and my dad grew up, to show me the good parts of our family history before everything got messy and complicated. We spent an evening at her kitchen table, looking at old photos and planning the route. Rita pointed to a picture of her and my dad as kids standing in front of an old diner that apparently made the best milkshakes in 3 counties. She told me stories about their childhood that sounded almost magical, back when they were close and looked out for each other. I booked us a bed and breakfast for a long weekend in April, and Rita got excited like a kid planning an adventure. In March, my boss called me into her office and told me I was getting promoted to senior analyst with a significant raise. I walked out of that meeting, and the first person I called was Rita. She screamed so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear, then immediately started planning a celebration dinner. That night, Rita, Tom, and Bella took me to this nice Italian restaurant downtown. Tom ordered a bottle of wine and stood up to give a toast, telling everyone at nearby tables that his daughter just got promoted. He talked about how proud he was of the woman I'd become, how I'd shown strength and grace through difficult times. Bella added that I was the best big sister anyone could ask for, and Rita reached across the table to squeeze my hand. The waiter brought out a dessert with a candle in it, and the whole restaurant sang. I posted a simple update on social media that night, just mentioning the promotion without much detail. 2 days later, Katie texted me congratulations, like nothing ever happened between us, like we were just normal sisters who talk regularly. The message was short and generic, the kind of thing you'd send to an acquaintance. I read it, considered responding, then closed the message and deleted the notification. Some relationships are meant to end, and that's okay. I don't owe her a response just because we share DNA. 6 months after Turks and Caicos, I'm sitting on Rita's back porch, watching Bella practice cartwheels in the yard. Tom is grilling burgers, and Rita brings me a lemonade, sitting down in the chair next to mine. We're planning our trip to their hometown for next month, and Bella is already asking when we can go back to the beach. My phone sits silent in my pocket because the people who matter are right here with me. I have Sunday dinners every week, movie nights, spontaneous coffee dates, and a family who includes me in everything they do. Rita, Tom, and Bella show up for me consistently, celebrate my wins, support me through hard times, and never make me question whether I'm wanted. My life feels full in a way it never did when I was trying to earn love from people who were never going to give it. Family isn't about blood or obligation or shared last names. It's about who's willing to love you consistently, who shows up when it matters, who makes space for you at their table without you having to ask. I finally understand that, and I'm happier than I've ever been. What do you think? Have you ever had to choose between the family you were born into and the family you found? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below.